Hello, welcome to the Leafy Elephant here in Wokingham. My name is Duncan. I am delighted to be here with you sharing your citrus gin tasting experience. Thank you so much for having this and sharing it with me. Can't wait to talk about these three gins with you, three really interesting ones. We're going to start with Sharish Blue Magic, the famous colour changing gin. If you haven't seen this before, a very interesting start for you from Portugal, the Alentejo area. Quite a rounded gin, so kind of a soft introduction, quite subtle. We'll then get into By the Dutch, the home of gin, some say. Very classic recipe as a result. Quite high on citrus, so kind of easing into a little bit more. And then we're going to finish in Italy with Malfy Gin con Limone with, as you can imagine, a high concentration of lemons. So getting a little bit more citrusy through each one. Very good contrasting gins as well, just to see the range of different gins that we've got in this space, even just within the citrus classification. So really excited to be doing that for you. The only thing that you're going to need that is not included in your box is obviously your gin glass. We exclusively here in the bar use these traditional copper ballon glasses for all of our gin and tonics. Reason being is because they are great for gin tasting. What happens is the flavours of the gins and the garnishes and the tonic kind of fold up the sides of the glass and fold over rather than escaping, which means that you're getting the most flavour from your gin and tonic with every mouthful. We do sell these on the website, so if you do need some gin glasses, we really like these ones, so do head back to the shop for those. The only other thing you're going to need is some ice. We recommend good quality, largest ice cubes that you can find. If you make your own at home, they're great. The reason being is that large ice cubes melt slower, and therefore you're going to get less dilution in your drink as you drink it. You know, we're aiming to be drinking gin and tonic, not gin, tonic and water. Water doesn't add anything, it just removes flavour from it. So if you can get some good quality large ice cubes, that would be great. So I will let you get set up. Feel free to come back to the video, pause it, do it at your own pace. I'm here to help you enjoy your experience. Hopefully I can do that. So I'll clear all this away, we'll get set up and we'll get started with Sharish Blue Magic. Alright, let's get started. First up, we've got Sharish Blue Magic for you. Great place to start because it's not the most citrusy gin that you'll have. It's fairly subtle, it's got some other elements to it as we will see, but before we dive into it, let's just address a couple of things about this. Portuguese gin from the Alentejo area, and the bottle, very distinct in its nature, is actually modelled on a silhouette of the founder Antonio's hometown. A little town called Monsaraz, medieval town, as you would suggest. The town is built up on the top of a hill. This is the town, this is the hill. Quite a cool little homage to where this started out. His area, very much known for wines in Portugal, but he took the bold step of starting to do gin. And as well as a distillery, he also has his own orchards, and he grows his own lemons, grows his own orange trees, and they make their way into this gin. I guess the other not so obvious, rather obvious part of this is the colour of it, and that is the inclusion of butterfly blue tea. That is, it doesn't add a lot to the flavour profile, but it makes it quite fun, it makes this gin quite unique. And what happens with butterfly blue tea, which is native to Asia, is that when you add a citrus element, it changes colour from a bluey colour to a pinky purple. Now, Annoyingly, we pair this, we think this goes best with Franklin Rhubarb colour, which in itself is pink. So, you know, cool, yeah. It changes it from blue to pink. Well, it would if you had a pink tonic. But let's do a little science experiment on this one before we start. So this is an extract of butterfly blue tea. So let's pour that in straight away. And if I add some water to this, what we'll see is it makes a very blue drink. Butterfly blue tea, blue drink. But if I add a citrus element to it, aka tonic, to it, or lemon juice or something like that, look what happens. Even though, you know, this is clear, that's clear, it changes from the blue to a purpley, violet, pinky colour. Pretty cool. So that's the colour changing element to it. Now, let's crack on and actually start tasting this and seeing what we've got. So, what you get from this, and the reason why we started with this in a citrus tasting box, is that it's a fairly rounded classic gin and a good introduction to start looking at the citrus sector here. But what you get, when you notice it isn't an awful lot of citrus, you know, you're picking up quite a berry profile here. He uses strawberries, he uses raspberries, he uses blackberries in this gin. So, you know, and I feel that's what you get. When you taste it neat, I would always recommend tasting the gins a little bit neat, because you get something that's different that's coming through. It's actually it's quite harsh to have neat. I wouldn't suggest it's one that many people would enjoy drinking neat. If you've had our aromatic tasting box, you know, even though they're quite savoury gins in there, there's two out of the three I would say that I would recommend having neat rather than gin and tonic. But I don't think I would put this one in that category. I think it needs to be built up. It's actually fairly spicy in there. It's fairly coriander heavy in there. You don't get, I don't think you get the berries that you get on the nose. It's partly why we pair this with the rhubarb tonic, to try and bring out the fruitiness in it. Now, Antonio uses, as I said, he uses the orange peels and the lemon peels from his own orchards. And the other local ingredient that's used in this is apples. Montserrat, as a town, is very well known for its apples, and we decide to pair this with apple, just because I think the citrus, when we make this into a gin and tonic, kind of speaks for itself, whereas the apple kind of just want to draw it out a little bit more. And so what you end up with as a gin and tonic, as well as a completely different coloured drink, is something that is now extremely refreshing. For me, yeah, we can drink this all year round. For me, it's one that I want to be sitting outside having, and what you get from it is now a lot less of the berries and a lot more of those citrus notes coming through. You're definitely getting my orange peel in there, you're definitely getting my lemon through there. I think the apple is just kind of that balancing piece of savouriness that you get at the bottom. And it's a fairly classic recipe. Yeah, getting kind of a bit of coriander through there at the back, not too heavy on juniper. I think that's kind of all gone away through this, and it becomes a slightly sweet, a very balanced gin and tonic, and one that's not too heavy on the citrus. And as we go through into the other ones, you'll see that we build up the level of citrus in here, but a very classic and a very interesting way to start your tasting. So enjoy this one, it's really fun, it's very photographic, it looks great on the shelf, and it's very refreshing. So a good start. Enjoy this one, and when you're ready, we'll come back and we're going to move up north into Holland and talk about By the Dutch. Right, so on to number 2. We move up from Portugal up into the Netherlands, arguably the birthplace of gin, most definitely the birthplace of Genever, which is a precursor to gin and originated in the Schiedam part, which is where By the Dutch is distilled, in the Herman Janssen distillery in Schiedam. Now, Genever, as a precursor to gin, used malt wine as a base, fairly sweet, used to be drunk on its own neat, and this is very much kind of a harp back to those eras. Before Old Toms were around, the malted wine and the malted barley that used to go into Genever makes its way into this gin. And it's kind of not the only thing about this gin that's fairly classic. It's a fairly classic bottle. It only uses 8 botanicals in there, so fairly simple, kind of stripped back to the basics, back to what gin was originally was when it moved over here from the Netherlands and into London before we started with the whole gin craze and the Prohibition era. So, like with the last one, let's start by trying a little bit of it neat and seeing what we get from it. Obviously, like we saw with Sharish, when we move from it being neat into a gin and tonic, things completely change. And it's not unlike that here, but this, even though these are both very citrus forward gins in the grand scheme of things, let's think, we've got 215 odd gins here, and these two are fairly close in their classification. Even when you nose them neat, they're quite a bit different. We're not getting the berries that we get from Sharish. What we're getting is something that's a little bit more savoury, I would suggest. When you taste it, it's definitely a lot more juniper forward. Again, very classic in its nature. You get through late is the bay leaves that they include in this, and we use them as a garnish in this just to help elevate it as a gin and tonic. And the sweetness from the orange blossom kind of comes through at the end. But again, I'm not sure how many people are going to be too enthusiastic about having this neat. I think it probably needs the garnish and the tonic to really help elevate this and draw out what we want from this as a gin. So, as I mentioned, the orange and the bay leaf that we add to this really complement it, but we keep it simple with the tonic. Look, they've kept it simple. We don't want to overcomplicate things either. Double Dutch Indian tonic is a perfect addition to this. And you may see on your menu card that we have the suggested ratios for the gins. We generally go for 1 part gin to 2 parts tonic. And this one, I would say that, Sharish, I think you could probably get away with pouring in the whole bottle if you wanted to, but this one, I would recommend trying to stick to that 1 to 2 ratio, maybe a little bit more, kind of, 2/3 of the bottle at max of this one, because otherwise the tonic starts to overpower the gin. It is bottled at 42.5%, and that carries the juniper through, but then when you come to taste it as a gin and tonic, you start getting a lot more of the citrus notes coming through at the end. I personally like to talk about gin in layers and what you get through the gin from the start to the finish. And for me, this one starts off with the juniper in your first layer, when you first take it. Then you get through a little bit of spice. They've got very classic, your corianders, it's got in there cinnamon, it's got in there a bit of clove in there, and the bay leaf, I'd say, comes through as layer 2. And then lastly, what finishes the palate is that sweet citrus, the orange blossom and the lemon. They're the only 2 citrus elements in this as gin, but those are your kind of lingering finishes on this gin. So pretty simple, very much different to Sharish, but for me, a little bit more citrus focus as we go through this. And what we'll see lastly with the Malfy Gin is even more citrus coming through. So enjoy this one, finish it up, and we'll come back and do your last gin. Right, so last but by no means least, we head southeast from Holland into the north of Italy for Malfy Gin con Limone, distilled in the Torino Distillati, which is just outside of Turin in the north of Italy. This kind of harks back thousands of years. I mean, if you look at Malfy, they will say that the monks, around the Turin area started developing drinks out of juniper berries back thousands of years ago. Who knows? I don't know. We've just said that we think Holland are the originators of gin and Geneva, so I'll leave that for you to decide. But unashamedly, this is the most citrus gin I reckon that we have in the bar out of all of the gins that we have, so a great place to finish your tasting. We thought that by the Dutch was simple. This is probably even simpler. It has just 6 botanicals to it, and for me, it probably might as well only have 3. And I would say that this gin is all about juniper, lemon, coriander, and that's it. Yes, it has grapefruit peel in there, it has a couple of other botanicals, but they're the 3 that we're really going to kick out of this. So, on the nose, that's what you get. Lemon sherbet coming straight through. The lemons that they use from this, two types of lemon, both are actually protected by the Italian government, and half come from the Amalfi Coast and half come from Sicily. So what you get is such intense flavour, and these guys as a distillery use a method called cold distillation or vacuum distillation. You may have heard one of those 2 phrases before. And effectively, they distill at a lower temperature, and therefore, the reason they're doing that is to try and lock in freshness and lock in flavour, and it works very, very well with citrus-based gins. Less so when we're talking about aromatics and florals, but actually that colder temperature locks in the freshness of the peels. And when you taste it neat, wow, I mean, look, there's not a lot to say about this gin really, apart from the lemons in it. And I don't think we should hide that. You've got a citrus experience. We built it up through Sharish, which was fairly rounded with berries. We've gone into by the Dutch, which is fairly classic, and it coming through late. This is citrus, bang, right on the nose, straight away. And we don't want to hide it. Look, we pair this with lemon as a garnish when we build this up as a gin and tonic. Like, why not? We're not going to really change the profile of this gin by adding anything else to it. You might want to, if you want to balance it a little bit, I would say it probably works fairly well with rosemary as a garnish, but we do it with lemon. And the slight balancing agent that we have with it is by pairing it with aromatic tonic. And again, as I said, only 6 ingredients. The 3 that we really want to get out of this are the juniper, the coriander, and the lemon. This aromatic tonic helps bring out that juniper and helps bring out the coriander. And what you get as a gin and tonic is something that is hugely refreshing, very summery. Yeah, of course, you can drink it all year round, but this reminds me, of course, sitting outside, sitting on the balcony, the sun's out, what would be better than a gin like this for that? You're getting the sweetness of the lemons straight away up front, and actually, when we go back to the layers, it's slightly the other way round on this one, in that the fruit appears early. Remember when we said by the Dutch, the sweetness of the citrus comes in quite late in that gin. This one, very much up front with it, and the other elements come in behind it, and it's backed up by the juniper at the end of it. So, a great place to finish a citrus tasting. If you like citrus gins and you're all in on it, then this is definitely the one for you. That completes the 3. If you've still got some, do dip in and out, try one from each, and just compare and contrast. I hope that you like all of the gins, obviously. If there is one that you particularly like, just scroll down on this page. We sell all of the gins as full bottles for you. We send you with it all of the tonics, a big bag of garnish, so you've got everything to add this to your collection at home, make gin tonics. And I hope I can welcome you back for another gin tasting very, very soon.